In 2008, I cashed my first tournament. It was a $1,500 no-limit hold'em event at the World Series of Poker, and I got 153rd out of 4,400. Not bad, I thought. 2 months later, a young college dropout from Denver, Colorado cashed his first tournament as well. To say the road diverged there would be a line that even old Robert Frost would agree was a severe understatement. I flew back to New York City to start a rock band. The other player stayed in Las Vegas, accumulated about $20 million in earnings, and has not one, not two, not three, but 4 World Series of Poker bracelets.
I'm here with the Chance Kornuth.
Chance Kornuth triples up.
Chance Kornuth.
You guessed it, this guy. Almost 17 years after our first cashes, here we are, face to face. I just made this one. You can get one of these if you want.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm one of the older dogs in poker now.
A couple of old dogs talking poker.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Not gonna lie, one of us knows a little more than the other. And that's why I'm trusting Chance and Chipleader Coaching to make me better. I want to dominate. I want to get to the final table. And I want to win again. And I don't have time for anyone but the very best. Some days I do feel like an old dog. But with age comes wisdom, right?
Why do we bluff? Why do the solvers bluff?
Why do we bluff? It's to, this is what I looked like in high school when I didn't do my homework. Now, I have experienced imposter syndrome in every challenge I've taken on in my life, as I'm sure a lot of us have. Poker is no different, but getting quizzed by one of the best players on earth takes it to another level. I'm anxious to show what I know, but I'm also eager to be humble and a good student. So here we go. What's the benefit of bluffing is, winning the pot without having the cards to show down, right?
But the real reason that we want to bluff, develop and cultivate that bad image is so we get paid when we have good hands.
Right, gotcha, yeah. Age does not beget wisdom. It comes with experience, and we all have our own brand. I like to think I've become adept at telling a story, and I'm hoping that my storytelling ability translates to the game that has now captivated me for these past 2 decades. But right now, I'm not exactly sure how this story is going to end. We're approaching the money, and I'm in the hijack. I go to 22,000 with jacks.
Good start.
Thanks. So the button goes to 125.
Which is absolutely massive.
I think this was a pro. So the flop comes 965, I check, he checks, and then I check the turn, which is a 3, and he checks. Now I'm thinking, if he's checking both flop and turn and the 5 comes on the river, I'm free to bet here, but I go super tiny. I'm just wondering, what do you see here?
A couple of things. First, you say the guy's probably a pro, but he 3-bet a size that's not pro-like. So I see that size, I immediately assume recreational. And I also immediately assume that there's no bluffs in this range. So if he doesn't have bluffs, he probably has ace-king almost always, and then queens through aces. So if we're going to proceed, probably proceed with caution. So I'm cool with the call. It's probably very safe to assume that if he had the pocket pairs portion of that range, that they would always see bet the flop. So when it goes check on the flop, I basically just assume that we always have the best hand. So in my opinion, by checking the turn, you're allowing him to possibly hit the river 13% of the time.
As this hand review plays out, it's becoming a lot easier to be humble. Having all of your bad decisions played out in front of you can do that to you. I'm learning a lot though, and in a short amount of time. And I noticed something about Chance that's hard to do when you're just watching him play poker on TV. During our lesson, I noticed he's observant. Not just more than most people, he's possibly the most observant and focused human being I've interacted with in a long time. He calls me out on an incorrect pot size on my graphic.
The pot should be 5,400, but it's fine.
Oh. Points out the button is on my left when I mention I'm in the big blind.
Button's on your left.
Oh, this picture is just a placeholder. All while wearing blue blockers.
You like my new blue light glasses?
Yeah, like you just put them on. I thought blue blockers from like the 80s, right?
Blue blocker sunglasses. They're really different.
I mean, I thought they were from the 2020s, bro. But
I mean, they're bringing them back maybe, but those are pretty old school. Today, it's easy to be distracted, but this session is inspiring me to tune everything else out and focus. I'm taking everything in, and I'm still trying to prove myself as a knowledgeable player.
Now I'll get into an example of that. I mean, this is like Phil Galfond, this is Jeremy Osmus.
And I get a little chance to redeem myself.
We defend versus a cutoff open. So our opponent puts out kind of this standard C-bet. If you were to think of what a check raise bluff looks like here, what comes to mind?
I would say a high club with maybe a king of clubs, 9 of spades or something, some kind of gutter with a club.
That's exactly right.
Bingo.
The first criteria when we're looking for a bluff is a little bit of equity.
The things I learned weren't complicated, but they take repetition and focus. He got me to start thinking like a next level player just by showing me one flop.
What's the first thing that you think of when you're playing against the big blind on an 8-8-4 board?
I think 8s and 4s are great for the big blind, but 2 of them out there, I would still feel safe betting small.
Yeah, and I think that's super reasonable because in your games, when your opponent has a low strength hand, they're going to fold. When they have a high strength hand, they're going to raise. And when they have a medium strength hand, they're going to call. They're going to play extremely honestly. But when I see this board against a good aggressive opponent, I think something a little bit differently. I think, okay, the big blind has the advantage in the 8x department. And an aggressive player like Pesh or any good aggressive reg knows that this is a board that they should have a high check raise frequency on. So if I c-bet too much here, I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm going to play a lot more checks. It's a little bit different, right? Because if you're playing against someone who's weak, just betting small, and then when they call, just betting twice, like bet small and then bet big is an absolutely printing strategy. When you're playing against tougher aggressive regulars, you want to play a little bit different and play a lot more checks. You want some homework?
Yeah, give me homework. I love it.
So in Chipleader AI, pick your path, flop, check raising, turn, double barreling.
So I'm off to Chipleader AI to practice, and this site makes it fun, engaging, and effective. Go click the link in the description to find out more. You get 7 days free on Chipleader Coaching. There are special rates for things like the Closer and Bracelet Hunter, which is perfect for prepping for the WSOP coming up this summer. Again, click that link in the description and help out the channel a little bit. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Side note, Chance shows me one hand and nails the right answer with barely consideration. Just another moment of ice cold focus on the way out the door from him. So what's next? What can I learn from Chipleader Coaching? From their more premium offerings like the Closer and Bracelet Hunter? From Chance himself?
Later, good to see you.
You too, man, thanks. How will all of this show itself in my results? Spoiler alert, I cash an online tournament and a live tournament right after our lesson, employing what I learned right here today on a lot of hands. Coincidence? Or am I riding the wave? Whatever it is, I'm ready for more. Until next time, thanks for watching.